So I'm going to be making pie crust. This should last you about half a year to a whole year, depending on how much baking you do. And these are the ingredients you're going to be needing. This, of course, you're going to need your measuring cups, measuring spoons, salt, all-purpose flour, some sugar, a big, huge Tupperware, some plastic wrap. You need some butter and some shortening. Now the butter is 4 sticks or 1 pound. The shortening is 2 pounds. So I actually weighed each one of them. If you don't want to use, you can't weigh it, then use a big old tub of the Crisco. They come in 3 pounds. And you don't even have to weigh it. It's just a whole can. So that one's 3 pounds. But you won't have the buttery flavor. But I like some butter, so I do 1 pound of butter to 2 pounds of the Crisco, of the vegetable shortening. Okay, so let me go ahead and start with this and put it together. And I need some sugar, some salt, which I already have both in here. You're gonna need some eggs, a pastry cutter, some vinegar, and a measuring cup. I have cold water in here, letting it get colder. I'm gonna put it back in the freezer while I mix everything. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and dump the 5-pound bag of flour into the Tupperware. But first, before I do anything to it, I'm going to get 2 cups of it out. And I'm going to put them aside for later. And I'm just putting them in the regular plate. And this is so when you're going to roll out your dough balls, you won't need much. Okay. To this, I'm going to add the sugar and the salt. And mix it for a few minutes just to make sure that it all mixes well. Make sure you don't have any jewelry. Make sure you clean your nails very good, because your hands are going to be going all in this. Okay. And you can feel it a little bit of the graininess from the salt and the sugar. And that way you can feel if it's all over. Okay. Give it a good mix. Now to this, I'm going to add, let me get it out of my freezer. I have my butter and the shortening. I've had it in the freezer to get cold. This is hard because they're a little bit smaller. This is a lot softer, but that's fine. And I put it in the little wax paper, so that way it's just easier to clean up the trays and stuff. But you do one at a time. And this is your pastry cutter. And all you're going to do is just, and it's going to be a little hard on the butter. You can cut them up in pieces when you put them to freeze, and it'll be a lot easier just to throw little pieces like this in here and cut it into it. So I'm going to do one of the butters first. And let me throw. And it's a little messy, but it's a real easy recipe that'll last you for a while. Let me grab some of the shortening. That's 1 pound of the shortening there. And that one's a little easier to cut in. If you don't have a pastry cutter, that's fine. You can use 2 forks. I don't want to use my hand because my hands tend to be real hot. And I don't want to melt the butter into it. You want, you could use 2 forks. What I'm going to do with the rest of the butter, I'm just going to cut little tabs of butter like this. and put it in here. It's a lot easier to cut with the pastry cutter or forks if you're going to use forks. I don't like using my hands because I don't want to melt the butter or the shortening because your hands tend to be a little bit warmer. You want to keep everything cold. Okay, let me work with this. And then just keep on cutting in there. Keep on doing this until you get a little crumble. And then I'm going to, while I mix everything else, once I finish mixing this, I'm going to put this in the freezer once it finishes. Just for a few minutes, not long. Just while I mix everything else. Okay, and I'll be back as soon as this is mixed up. Okay, so I've already finished mixing it all up. And you see it's crumbling, and that's what you're looking for. Okay, so to this, I'm going to go ahead and put it in the freezer. Okay, so now we're going to do the wet part. So I'm going to add the eggs. Always crack your eggs on a different bowl. That way you can catch any eggshells from it. Okay, and I'm going to whisk that together. Give it a good mix. Pour out my vinegar into here. Okay, I have, literally I put it in the freezer. I want to keep this water cold. I need 2 cups. Probably make a mess here. Just a tad bit more. Make sure you look at it at eye level. You don't want to put too much. Okay. So you got 2 cups of water. We're going to add this to the eggs. And to that, I'm going to be adding the vinegar. Now, I'll post a link to the recipe at the bottom. If I did not give you the measurements to everything. Okay, let's put this aside and we'll get that crumble from the freezer. Okay, and this is what it looks like. Now you're going to use your hands. And you're going to pour this mixture to that. And just keep on mixing and it'll come together as a dough. Once it pulls together, you put it onto the counter on a floured surface and you keep on rolling it to form a nice smooth dough. Okay, I'll be back when I finish mixing it. Okay, and it's already a little sticky right here, but over here still dry. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and flour the counter here. Be generous, because it's still a little sticky in there. Okay, and we're going to bring this over and scrape off anything that's left in here. Okay. And just start forming that ball, that dough ball. Get it all mixed up. mixed in here. It's a little hard to work with this when you're short like me. My son's gesturing to me over here. That's why I'm laughing. Because he's like, I'll do it. He's all taller than me, so he saw I can do it. He's telling me he's directed me from over there. Okay, it's coming together. I'm go ahead and add a little bit more of the flour, not much. Depending on where you live, the altitude will affect the pie crust as to how much flour you need. You might not need extra, you might. Just depends where you live at. Okay, this is a good workout. And it's coming together, looking smooth, just the way I want it to look. But every time you give it a little turn, you can see it's sticky right here. So this is where we want to put a little bit of flour, because we don't want a sticky crust. We want it to be smooth, kind of like if you're making tortillas. That texture right there. Make sure you put some pressure into it. You don't want to overwork it, but you need to get it all combined. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and leave it alone. I'm going to cut it in half and wrap it in plastic wrap. Refrigerate it for 20 minutes and then save the flour because you're going to need it again. Keep on putting a little bit of flour in your hands and just pat it. And just flatten it out so you can cut it in half. I probably just cut it in 4. It's a lot easier to wrap when it's cut in 4. Try to make equal amounts here. You're going to try to get 20 little balls from here. But for right now, we're only going to get 4 flat. Okay, just cut it in half. And in half again. Okay, so get your plastic wrap out. And just lift it. And just make it fit in the plastic wrap. And seal it real good. Don't let any air in it. And you're going to set them in the refrigerator once they're all wrapped completely for 20 minutes. Okay, so I'll be back after the 20 minutes. Okay, so it's been about 20 minutes, 25 minutes that it's been refrigerated. Save the little wrap because you're going to wrap some more in a minute. Get a little bit of flour. Okay, and just go ahead and knead this a little bit. It feels perfect. Okay, and I'm going to try to get about 5 little stacks from here. I'm going to do it this way so I can try to get about 5. It's only 4. Why don't I do 4? Try to get it about the same length and thickness. I mean, I could weigh it and get the exact amount, but I don't want to go through all that. So go ahead and cut this in half. And cut this in half again. And if they're not even, that's fine. You can always get 2 of the stacks and combine them together. Okay, that's all to it. And then you're going to divide these into a total of, well, it's going to be 16 instead of the 20. And when you roll it out, you're probably going to have at least enough for a whole pie, and maybe have a little bit left over, a little of the scraps left over. Save them, don't throw them away. Just keep on putting them in a baggie, and then you'll end up with 1 or 2 more extras. But this is enough just for either a bottom or a top of a pie. Okay, so when you're making a pie that requires the top and bottom, you're going to pull out 2 of these from the freezer. Okay, so let me go ahead and finish rolling these out and wrapping them, and I'll be back to show you how to store them. Okay, so I'm doing the last of the 4 that I had wrapped up earlier. Put this aside. Let me cut this because I could still use this plastic wrap. And all the other ones that I've made, I've put them in the refrigerator while I do each set. Okay, and I'm just going to cut this in half. Okay, just put them aside. Just dip it in the flour. And just play with it for a little bit. Not much, just so the flour can go in there. And they're all different sizes, but you try to get them close to the same size of everything. If you go ahead and take 2 out when you're making, if you see a small one, go ahead and take 2 out just in case. And you can always refreeze it, that's not a problem. Okay, just continue to wrap it. Set aside, do the same with the other ones. Okay, and try not to mess with it too much, just as much as you need to, and you can feel the difference once the flour has mixed in it well. You can feel that you start feeling the little stickiness to it, and that's fine. You don't want it to dry. That'll help it to when you're ready to roll it out. Okay. Same thing with this. Okay. And like I said, I'm going to post the link to the recipe so you can go ahead and get that recipe because I didn't give you the portions. Let's wrap this up. Take out any extra air from it. Set it aside, do the same thing. And I've done this to all the other ones already. And then once they're all completely wrapped, I have a sealer. So that's where I'm going to be storing mine. And I make the bags big enough to where I can reseal them again. But if you do not have a sealer like I do, then I suggest you double wrap these in the plastic wrap from this. And then once you double wrap it, put it in a storage bag, like a Ziploc bag of the freezer kind, and store it in there. That way you don't get that freezer taste. Sometimes refrigerators have a certain taste and you don't want that. Let me go ahead and get my sealer out and we'll go from there. Okay, so here's my sealer. And all you do, again, you can use the Ziploc baggies. This is what I have, so this is what I'm going to use. And I'm going to put 4 per container. And I'm going to make it a little bit larger than usual because when I pull out just what I need, I can come back and reseal it. Maybe that's a little too long. Okay, and then just use this little cutter to cut it across. And you put it in here and the little, seal it up one side first. Okay. Can't see with the glare. Got it. Okay, now we got it. Got to put the little lever down. There's a little lever on the side that you pull down so you can lock this in place. And it's sealing. Once it finishes, it's going to go ahead and clear it up. See, it's already done. You go ahead and open the little seal, pop it open. And to this, I'll be adding the Ziploc pie crust and just fit them in there. I'm going to do them flat so that way they're easier to stack in the freezer. And this is going to last you for a year. If you seal them properly with the, if you don't have this, it's fine. Go ahead and get your, I don't know. It's going to suck out the air. Let me move a little bit back. But if you seal them properly, just with the Ziploc bags as well, doesn't have to be this, then you can keep them for a year. Mine don't last a year. I use them before the year. But if it just so happen I do, put the little level down. Okay. Now, if you have moisture in it, you're going to go ahead and put down that the food has moisture. And it's going to be normal, not gentle, because I don't care if it squeezes the pie crust. So I'm going to go, and you're going to hear some noise. Sorry, it's going to be the vacuuming seal. Okay. And if you didn't seal it right, you'll know because there's not the sealed on it. It's not, whatchamacallit, it's not going to be sealed correctly. You'll have some air pockets in it. And you can tell on this one, see, it's sealed completely. Okay, and that's it. Pick up the lever. And you store it like this. It's sealed completely. When I'm ready to use it, after it's been in the freezer, I just cut it right there at the seam, get what I'm going to use, and then reseal it again through this. I don't need to use another bag. I'll just reseal it once more. I'll just cut right there and keep on going until I finish it. Okay, and that's all to it for pie crust you can have for a whole year. It does smell a little bit like vinegar right now because it's freshly made. But once you bake it, you're not going to smell any vinegar at all. Okay, so that vinegar helps it keep for the year as well from going rancid and stuff like that. So that's it. I hope y'all like this idea. I hope the recipe helps you. So that way you don't have to be constantly making pie crust. Every time you want some, just pop it out of the freezer and you have it. I have a total of 16 portions. However, out of the 16, you might be able to make some more because of the little scraps that are left. Go ahead and put it back in a Ziploc bag, freeze it, and when you're ready to use, just put it all together and you'll make yourself another pie crust of 1 or 2 more of the pie crust. Single, like 2 little single round discs that are left. And that's it. Nothing to it. Give me a like on my YouTube. Subscribe. I'll post the link at the bottom for the recipe for all the portions. Y'all have a good day.